because I still am. I ain't really digested. I've been in a whirlwind from Saturday to Saturday. So when I sit down, it's going to all just fall. I'm trying to hold it up now. So the characteristics of a storm, they are sudden. It affects your vision, how you look and perceive things. It affects your visibility, how far you can see things. It also affects your voice. You cannot hear too much in a storm. It's too much noise going on. It affects your movement because you don't know where to move. It affects your speed, how fast you go. Any storm, you slow down, don't you? You slow down. It comes when you are tired and you are unrested. You cannot make a sound decision when there is no rest. I'm in the lesson. You can't, I want to go ahead of myself. You let God do him and go sit your butt down somewhere and get you some rest. Jesus was on the boat. He went to sleep. Let me keep going. I don't have time. I'm going to give you some things, and you're going to do some research on your own because it would take a long time to even break that down, and I want to get to what he got going on for me. But this past storm, I was in that. The storm, my house was sitting in a lake. Had my window broken, the only window that's not cubed was broken, the lake would have been in my house. At some point, I realized that only God, you can save this. If you gave it to me, you would save it. But if you take it, you will give me another. I drank me some coffee and I set my butt down. I did my part, now he got to do his part. That was the first storm. When he began to say, now I want to take you into this lesson. I said, oh, I get that. So in Mark 35, it says this, in the same day. My question is, ask questions. God will answer it for. The Holy Spirit will lead you into all truth. I said, why that day? Why this day? Jesus has been preaching up and down the Sea of Galilee, and this day he wants to pass over. Why is it this day and not the other day that he wanted to pass over? It's a purpose for it. I want to know what is the purpose. He said, let us pass over to the other side. As he began to take me through this, I realized anytime you are going to pass over to the other side, AKA have an opportunity to go higher in the things of God, anticipate a storm. Don't think when you get with God, you think all things going to be good. No, anticipate a storm. Obedience qualifies you for a storm. Job, obedient. God said, come here, Satan. You consider Job? Obedience qualifies you for that. When you think of Passover, in hindsight, after God gave him the lesson, Passover really means freedom. The last Passover they had when they put the blood on the doorpost, they was freed after that. So when you passing over, you're going to a higher thing in God. You can look at it as a storm, or you can look at it as an opportunity to come up. Things are not what they seem. In Mark 36, he says, they took him even as he was in the ship. Jesus was preaching from the ship by the shore. So when they had left to go to the other side, he was already in the boat. That's what they mean by as he was. They didn't have to say, come on, just get in the boat. He was already on the boat teaching. He was in the bow, B-O-W, of the boat, of the ship. And the bow, anybody watch Titanic? I'm a Titanic freak. I love Titanic. Y'all remember the part when Rose and him was at the top of the ship and he told her to get on top of that railing and put her arms out? That's the bow. The railing that shelters them from falling over is called the pulpit. Come on now. That is where they got the pulpit from, because you are able to see and your visibility is greater in the pulpit. And there was also with him other little ships, okay? What is the significance of the other little ships? I'm asking questions because they don't say nothing about that nowhere else in the Bible except right there about those other little ships. Some theologians call that a throwaway line. You know how we talk to people and we say something, we will say, well, that's neither here or there. That's one of those. It was some other little ship. That's neither here or there. But the point is, I look at it, and this is just my interpretation, it couldn't be a personification of the world without Jesus. Because you in the boat with Jesus, and there's other little boats over there. They are without Jesus. So if they scared as heck in the boat with Jesus, how the heck you think they feel? That's like a world without Jesus. And then, you know, they say northern people funny with this word. Oh, she got her little house. Oh, her little car. Oh, look at her little dog. Oh, We put little on everything. But little, when we say that, means in comparison to what we got. So that ship that they had was little in comparison to the ship that they're on. And if the wind is beating this one up, what do you think happened to that ship? Could it be, I just thought about this, could it be that the reason why they didn't mention the ship because it was no longer? I just got that revelation, but anyway, we'll keep going. Mark 37 says, and arose a great wind, and the waves beat the ship, and it was now full. The wind was so bad. When I looked up this wind and I began to study, because that's what God gave me on Monday, was to study the four winds. That right there is deep. Deep. The four winds. Go study that out. You will be blessed. So, the wind was so bad, peep this. In books of Acts chapter 27, verse 14, they speak of this wind. The wind is so terrible that they gave the wind a name. The wind name, and I'm going to pronounce it because I said, Euroclydon. 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 The wind is so jacked up. It's so known that they gave it a name. This wind is a violent wind that arose during Paul's voyage in going to Rome. This term is derived from a couple of words, and it's really meaning the east wind and the north wind. When you look in your King James Bible and you look up that word, his little asterisk by it, and you look it up, they said south and eastern wind. So I said, which one is it? But one thing I can definitely tell you is that it's the eastern wind. I was in the Kojic church years ago, and they taught me one thing. Anything coming from the east ain't good. And that east wind is mighty. That east wind means judgment. So anything, I don't give a care if it's south, north, if it's east, it's jacked up. East on its own is powerful. Now, if you mix this together, you got some terrible stuff. I'm going to break it down in layman's terms, and when you can come down to scientific. When you mix hot and cold, you get storms. Hot and cold, typhoons, hurricanes, tsunamis, all that stuff. That's in the natural. But in the spiritual, it's much greater than that. So the Strong's has it as a G417, 417, H7307. So 417 is a word called aneos, E-N-A-N-E-M-O-J. And that means wind, violent agitation, and stream of air, very strong, tempestuous wind. And it also means the four principles or the cardinal winds, hence the four corners of the heavens. It's talking about the four winds here. These are the same four winds that's in Revelation 7:1 when God's judgment is held by the four angels and to the serpents are sealed. These are the winds that the angels hold back before they destroy the world. Before God's people is left up out of here. They held them back because had they not, they would have tore up everything. Now 2 is doing this, imagine 4. Dr. Miles, Dr. Francis Miles, God gave him a revelation about the four winds, got a whole study on it. And he said when the four winds come together simultaneously, when they unite as one, it's the breath of God. And that right there is 87307. It's the ruach of God, the wind that was above the water. Who? The one that God breathed life into, us. They powerful. It can bring life, but it also can bring destruction. Okay? So when we go on to Mark 38, and he says he was in the hinder part of the ship asleep on a pillow. Okay? That's what it was talking about. Once God do what he got to do, once you do what you got to do, go sit down somewhere and rest. Because you're going to need that energy to fight what's coming next when it's your part to come and do what you got to do. Okay? But here it is. What is the hinder part? Because I'm thinking like this. If it's a great storm coming up and Jesus decided to go in the hinder part, it must be something about that position that he took. What is the hinder part of the ship? The hinder part is what they call the stern. Now, once again, I relate to what I don't know to what I do know. So in Titanic, you remember when that boat flipped the heck up and those wheels, that them propellers were showing? That's the stern. That big part, that was a big, it was like, ooh. And it just sat there for a little while. And it broke. That's the stern. Let me tell you what the stern do. The most vulnerable part of the ship is the stern. I got to read this slow so you can get this. It is essential for safe and efficient boating. As me and John has said, it's the control center. Because John got it about 2 months ago. I caught you, John. It is the control center. This stern, imagine this stern as being in this. Let me just keep on going. This stern controls the stability of the entire boat. That's where Jesus chose to be at, is where the stability is at. The stern is where they steer the boat, where you going. The stern is the I'm country. The propulsion, that's where the engine part is, where you thrust through the water. The power of the boat, that's where it is. The navigation, it helps indicates the vessel's position and direction. It also contributes to the buoyancy of the boat. It contributes to the boat staying afloat in water. Jesus chose to stay in the stern because that's the central place that we're going to need help in stability in our life, steering us in the right direction, powering us forward through this world, navigating us through everything, leading us. It says, he's a light unto my path. And the buoyancy, he keeps you afloat. As we say, I'm trying to keep my head above water, have Jesus, life raft, a life raft. He was asleep. Here it is. That's what scared them the most, was that he was asleep. When he was asleep, his body was asleep, but he was fully operating in the spirit. This book teaches us that he is fully man and that he is fully spirit. But when he went, even Jesus said, let that body just go and rest. Let me handle this. This body is so dense and it carries weight in the spirit and it can weigh you down. Whenever we're trying to go somewhere in God, go higher in God, the first thing we do is what? Fast. Fasting, you get rid of the weight. So when he went to sleep, the weight was gone. He was fully operating in the spirit. I'd rather for him to be doing that. You know what I'm saying? Either way it goes, to be honest with you, he can operate either way. But they should not have been afraid that he was asleep because he never sleeps or slumber. His spirit man. And they awoke him and say unto him, Masters, carest thou not that we perish? What killed them was the silence of God. And Jesus is in the boat and at the stern. You should not have anything to worry about when he in the boat with you. And he at the control center and he running everything. This is an illustration of what believers look like when storms come and we think God is not paying attention. We think, oh, God ain't said nothing, ain't nothing happened, and he ain't turning this boat around, and it's like it's about to rush right up into these icebergs, because I'm thinking of Titanic, and these icebergs, and God ain't here. He don't see this. When we know that he sees all things. In a storm, in the silence of God, we ask questions that don't make sense. God, are you looking? God, he omniscient, all present, all seeing God, we know this. That's biblical old 9 to 5. You know what I'm saying? But we ask questions like that as a seasoned saint when we're going through and God ain't did nothing for us. At least we think he didn't do anything for us. We act like God needs some assistance when he taking his time. Abraham and Sarah. Job, an example, Job did not curse God, but he began to talk so crazy to God to the point where God said, where was you when I created heaven and the earth? Job is what he chose Job to go through this. He's like, you know what, choose Job because, you know. So Job was obedient. Job didn't curse God, but he started talking crazy at the side of his neck. So God had to check him. It's a whole chapter, just him just checking the heck out of Job. Where was you at when I created the storm, the wind, all of this? Job got quiet. The silence of God is a course in the boot camp of God that we all must pass. Don't think that because you failed, you done. You got to repeat that until you get it. You got to repeat it. When God is silent, he is watching and observing. It kind of reminds me of an infant walking. When an infant gets up and they begin to take a step, a parent doesn't go over there immediately and assist. They sit back and they observe and watch. Most of the time we act like we don't look at them because we don't want them to be caught off guard. We go over there like looking to the side. And when a child begin to walk, we observe to see, can he do it? Because we know you've been in that bouncer for 3 months, tearing up the whole dang house. I know your leg's strong. I know your leg. I gave you some assistance. I know your legs are strong because my table ends can prove it. So I know you can do it. And when they fall, we go over there and then we help them, what? Back up. That is what God does for us. So in silence, it's really trust. He gave you and equipped you for everything that you have. He gave you and equipped you for everything you need for the task at hand. He will never leave you out there like that. He's just sitting back watching to see if you're going to do what he already done taught you to do. And when you fail, he's going to dust your butt off and pick you back up and then sends you right back to where you were before. And then you think he a cruel God. No, he's not. He's teaching you because later on you're going to need that. You're going to need that. In this storm, it says you have to know that you are, here it is. You have to know that you are in the will of God and chill. The problem that we have is that we don't actually know we is in the will of God because we don't lie on our taxes, we don't lie on our FEMA, we don't lie at the job, we up here sleeping around, we up here cursing, we backbiting, we're doing all these different things that we know are not of God in private. Nobody knows, but you know, and you don't know if you're feeling the repercussions of the mess that you did and will not correct. So now you're thinking, this must be what my judgment is. God have mercy on me. When sometimes, oftentimes, it ain't even anything you did in the first place. Job didn't do jack except be obedient. But you have to know that you are in the will of God. Because if you know you are in the will of God, at some point, like in the storm that I was in, I set my butt down with a cup of coffee, wet, because I was outside digging up that dang sewer thing like I was working for the Department of Waterworks. Drenched, wet, all the way up to here. I sat down and I drank some coffee because it's beyond me now. I can't worry about it. I'm going to chill right now and drink me some coffee. Because if God did it, he can do it again. Do your part and let God do him. If he bring you to the storm, he'll bring you through the storm. Only thing that he has to do is say a word. That's it. Because in verse 39, and he arose and rebuked the wind and said unto the sea, peace be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Now, in the other later versions, it's extra that's added on to that. I'm not going into that today. We're going to stick on to this text, the earliest text. It says that he rebuked the wind, and he said unto the sea, peace be still. Here it is. Even though, because I got notes all over here. Even though the water is in the boat, it is not what caused the fishermen to fear. It wasn't the water. Okay, even the water was in the boat. That is what caused the fishermen to fear. But the wind coordinated it. It wasn't the root cause of it. The water was coming in the boat because the wind was pushing it in the boat. A cause and effect. Here it is. This is the question that I was sitting on that I just couldn't fathom. Because I know that God controls everything. You know what I'm saying? He controls everything. But he rebuked the wind. He rebuked. You only rebuke things that are out of order. Why would God, Jesus, rebuke the wind if he sent the wind? And the wind was doing what it wanted him to, that he wanted it to do. That wasn't the case here. He rebuked the wind because the wind was out of order. He corrected it. God is not going to rebuke himself. The winds, this right here, this is, the wind was weaponized by another spiritual force. Everything ain't what it's saying. It's not. The earth realm, and I can't go all into it, but I'm going to give you some points. The earth realm, God, heaven and earth is cause and effect. What happens in heaven happens on earth. And heaven has laws, earth has laws. When the winds are in heaven, God has control, dominion over them. But when the winds come down here into the earthly realm, God in Genesis gave dominion over all things to man. So in the earthly realm, man has dominion. Man has been compromised. So if man has dominion, and man is now sinful and compromised, demonic, possessed, or influenced by other things, whatever can influence man can influence the wind. You get it? So the question here is, and you will learn in lesson 2, part 2 next week, who sent the wind? Ooh, who sent the wind? Okay. Told you I got 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes, AD. Things are not always what they seem. There's a movie called Weapons. I watched the movie on Sunday when I was at home with my bad leg getting healed up, right? And somebody told me about it about a week ago. I watched the movie Weapons. I'm going to fast forward to the end. All kind of demonic things happen in the town. Kids going missing, and nobody knows what's going on. They blame who they saw and thought it was it, but everything ain't what it seemed. It was a demonic witch doing witchcraft in the background doing roots that they found out later on. Everything weaponized. Everything ain't what it seems. What is the root cause of that thing? Ask that. Going forward. Verse 40. And he said unto them, why are you so fearful? This right here is a delivering word. I promise you it is right here. At least it was for me. When God is about to use you, you would need, be fast forward because I changed the reverse. What? God asked him, why are you so fearful? What would a master fisherman fear the most? Dying at sea. Each and every one of us has a fear that is so exponential that we don't forget about it. It's been rooted in you from childhood, from noticing that right there. I don't ever want that to happen. Little kid, I'm in the Arkansas Pine Bluff in the country, be picking watermelons. A snake came up. I'm terrified of snakes. Terrified of snakes. What would a master fisherman be supposed to get down at the sea? That entity that was controlling the wind knew what his worst fear was and brought it up on him to stop the movement or the advancement in God, because God was going to take him onto the other side. When God is about to use you, you will need to face what you fear the most, because that is what the devil will use to take you out of the will of God. As soon as you're about to go into your greatest season of your life, here comes that head of razor. Bishop taught us that a long time ago. A head of razor is something laying dormant in your life for such a time as this. Your greatest fear has been brewing for decades, most since childhood. What is your greatest fear? Is it rejection? Is it abandonment? Is it being poor? Is it being alone? Is it not being loved? Is it death? You can't fear me. You can't scare me with being poor. I ain't never had nothing. I know how to live. I know how to stretch a dollar. You can't fear me or scare me with being alone. I'm an introvert. I love being alone. I love being by myself. You can't scare me with that. You can't scare me with death. I know where I'm going. But you know what I was afraid of? That I realized that this is about the reason why God gave it to me, because I conquered a generational curse. My fear was dying like my mother died, which was obesity. A whole year later, I lost about 60 pounds. The devil ain't going to get me. You thought you was going to take me out, but God said, not so. God said, not so. Woo! He said, how is it that ye have no faith? Faith is opposite of fear. Fear is opposite of faith. Faith is opposite of fear. After all they saw Jesus do, it was not as great as what they feared the most. People most times will not believe or have faith until it happens to them. They don't saw all these healings.